What's up, guys? Welcome to the James Beaudrie Podcast, where I sit down with people from all walks of life to talk about their stories, experiences, and ideas. This podcast is brought to you by Watson Motors, the official studio sponsor. If you're in need of a Jeep, Ram, or Dodge, or whatever, these guys have you covered with great deals and even better service. So hit them up in Manistee, Benzie, or Ludington, or check them out online at watsonmotors.com. Listen, support the people that support the show. Now let's get into it.
Yeah, man, I appreciate it. I was been a fan for a while, and the content was great. I'm like, I want to figure out how to be part of this, man. Just come hang out with you. Cameras on or out.
Yeah, I love this shit because, we've known each other for a number of years, but we've never actually gotten to know each other.
Yeah.
So I love recording this stuff. I love doing podcasts like this because it's an opportunity for not only me, but like the people that consume this to get to know people. And I fucking love it. Because after a while, you get a little loose, and then you really, because we're forcing each other to have a long conversation.
Right.
Whereas if we're just like at a party or something, you're just getting glimpses into somebody's life.
Yeah.
But this way, you get to know me a little bit more. I get to know you a lot more, and hopefully there's bonds that are formed with it, and so I get down with that. But there's a couple of things I wanted to touch on before we get into the nuts and bolts, and I don't know how long you want to go into it, but like, I know that you've been in the beverage industry for a long time, and then there's obviously the marketing component, but I'm interested, you worked for Shorts Brewing Company, so maybe what did you do before that, and then let's talk about Shorts before we get into where you're at now with Ironfish here in Manistee County.
Yeah, absolutely. So my career path is one that I always tell my kids I hope they never replicate, how volatile it was, but it was really beautiful. And I grew up in Lansing, so skateboarding, was a big part of my life in the 80s. BMX, of course, was also, as we talk about Rad, I'm hoping we can chat through that whole documentary. But design, product development, first love, the idea that I could create something, that was ubiquitous and then make it multifunctional and multi-purpose in so many ways, and I'm a big fan of the 1950s and, postmodern art, mid-century work, Charlie Harper, just big fans of that, and then the skateboard culture that came with that, with the art movement. But started in the toy industry, doing packaging development, which was great. And then I was I think one of the first people, I guess at the time, to really figure out how to work remote in northern Michigan. I always wanted to live here. This is where I wanted to be. This is where I wanted to raise a family. But I also wanted to work with these amazing people in California. And, I wanted to figure out different ways to, shift my career. So was able to pull that off. In about 2012, I met one of my childhood heroes, pro skateboarder, Tony Magnuson, Ron Allen. And we were able to just start like a friendship virtually, and ended up working for them, relaunching the historic 8th Street Skateboards brand.
What year was this?
This is back in 2014, 2013. Okay. So that was a big part of my career. So I was working remotely, flying to San Diego, and just loving life, But that got a little, 3 kids, got a little wild. Big fan of Joe Short. Our kids are the same age. Followed his story from humble beginnings, and anyways, we got to know each other through soccer, and we just came on board there. 2014, 2015.
What were you doing there?
Did creative and marketing as well. So we had an absolute blast.
Absolute blast. Some of the shit that he puts on social media, dude, it's like, man, how do you have time to put all this together and do all the things that you're doing, like the Braxton Hicks and contraction shit?
It's remarkable. It's remarkable. It's remarkable. It's so hard not to be drawn to that, know, and because at humble beginnings, Joe Short, Kalkaska kid, just bootstrapped this thing that wasn't supposed to happen and made it this remarkable business in northern Michigan. And so there was a lot of skateboarding in that DNA of like, this shouldn't be, but it is.
Yeah.
You know, it was scrappy, it was fun. We had so much fun there, you know. And Ironfish has a lot of the same DNA, but yeah, great time being part of that team, and the Locals Light rebrand, and you know, there's so many good parts of that. And beer's fast pace.
Yeah.
It's not like whiskey where it takes time.
Right.
So you're turning things over quickly, and there was definitely that Willy Wonka era of shorts, where it's just putting out crazy stuff all the time. You know?
There's a love-hate in the beer community.
Yeah.
With that kind of stuff. I would say with consumers more than you know, people that are actually in the brewing industry, because I love it.
Yeah.
Even the beers that I can't stand. Like, I'm gonna say it. I fucking hate Nicey Spicy. And I know it's Joe's favorite beer, but you know, when it comes out, I will buy a 6-pack of it because I'm like, you know, I like the rotation.
Yeah.
I like all the wild shit that they put out. I hate that beer, Joe, but it's and you know, customers, when I had the liquor store, customers would come in and be like, when is this coming, or they'd be like, I really don't like all the stuff in this one, but they're fans because they get it, and it's almost from as a consumer, I look at what Shorts does as they're doing it for their people, the people that are buying, you know, they have fans, regardless of, you know, which beer, and they do obviously, you know, just this wide variety of flavors, and the artwork, and how that's like the people that work there, you know. And Scott Newman Bale is like
Scott Newman Bale, so iconic, so iconic. I mean, it's just characters, it's personality, and I think that was the thing that was so fun, was like, as things start to grow and you try to scale, you know, there's just this, you're forced into almost polishing things off to be a little more, whether it's internally structured or, but the idea that you can pull back the curtain, people just want to see the personalities, the amount of people from that company that were on beer labels because of who they were. It's remarkable. People love that. And we tried to represent that in the art, you know, like big panel 6-packs, full, you know, it was a little, you know, I guess from a branding perspective, it wasn't always connecting the dots on what it was, but it still was iconic when you knew it was Shorts. But that was fun. That was a fun era.
And that's a good point. There's never any real cohesion with the brand, with the branding. And I think as marketers, you're always looking at consistency in the brand so that it's recognizable immediately.
Right. It's like I think of like punk rock, you know, it's like that scrappy, crafty. It's like it's an aesthetic in how shitty it is. You know what I mean? And like in the best possible way, but there is that element of craft that I think was done well, you know, and it was fun. But yeah, it's tough. It's like, and that's your aesthetic is Willy Wonka, and then I always, you know, Malcolm Gladwell's Tipping Point.
Yeah, good book.
One of the greatest books, and I reread it recently, and it's like the 80-20 rule applies to so many things. And I think when brands get, you know, it's like anything, you have flagships, you have 20% of your SKUs that are producing 80% of your revenue, and then you have that 80% that's only contributing to 20. And I feel like that shift of the really romantic specialty products, whether it's beer or finishes, you know, you don't make a lot of money on them, but they tell a story, they're romantic, they define how deep your bench is, you know, in terms of a company. But I think when you get too far off of that equation, it's harder to stay alive, stay afloat, you know. You need the boring, I don't say boring, but you need those consistent, you know.
And I think I completely agree with that equation, but I also think like what happens when these breweries get super successful and then they sell. And the bigger companies come in and say that 20% or 80% that we're having fun with is now gone.
Exactly.
And then the real fans are like, what the fuck? You know, I think you see that happening with like Bell's, you know, some stuff moving out. It sucks, you know, and you worry about companies like, only as a consumer. As a consumer, you worry like, man, if anything changes, it's going to be the end of it.
I know.
You know, and we've been doing this long enough. Like when I saw Ballast Point come to Michigan, when Constellation Brands bought it for an insane amount of money, and then they were selling 6-packs in 2008 18 for $16 a six pack on an IPA, and people were like, "No, we're not buying this shit." And it didn't take long, and then they had to sell it back at a reduced cost. You know?
Yeah, I know, and that happens a lot where it's like you're buying that time in craft. It was like they were buying the street cred of these smaller brands. But within that, on the back end, we're going to scale it. We're going to take this. We're not making money on this, even though this defines it. Then they take the flags, and they try to scale that to a point that, you know.
Right.
And I think that's I don't want to say this is like an American way of doing things, but I think it is. It's like
there's a lot of capitalism in that.
There is, and like we like to take something good and just like squeeze the life out of it and throw it away. And you saw that happen a lot, you know. St. Archer's Brewing Company in San Diego. The brand equity of that company was remarkable. I think they were doing, was it 35? They were doing a ridiculous amount just in California, you know, different market. But Miller Coors, I believe, bought them out. Came to Michigan, which I was excited about. Took those flags and just, you know, a couple of years they were gone. So it's hard to harness that magic, you know, if you're not thinking, and if it's profit, it's a whole different game. So,
and I hesitate to use the word niche, but the companies that you work for are definitely that smaller grassroots.
Yes.
In the beginning, I still think Shorts is. Yeah, I mean they're huge here and growing elsewhere, but they've still got that homegrown appeal to them, which is kind of rad.
It is.
You know,
it is.
That's what I really appreciate.
Yeah.
You know, my wife and I were talking about something where like they're a big business that still operates on that nice small level. You know, I mean, we were making a correlation to something else last night at dinner, talking about businesses. Like sometimes big businesses make real beginner level mistakes, and small businesses are making the smart higher level moves. You know, and there's very rare where in the middle is just synergy. You know.
I know, and I've seen it from both sides, so I feel like I'm in the middle on that in ways where it's like if you're not scaling, if you're not being too accessible, if you're not being accessible enough, you're going to lose. If you're being too, there's that old saying, core is poor. Where it's like if you're so core, you're missing out. You know, there's this pretentiousness around your brand that's not accessible, and that happens too. But it's a tough one. It's tough. You know, everybody wants to be a certain size, and then like, let's just be. I mean, Iron Fisher's that way too. It's like let's just have a couple barrels. People might make their way down this road at some point. And
you know, but we'll come back to that. But something that popped in my head is when in 2016. Betsy and I, mostly me, you know, I had been working on a business plan and I've been like dropping little nuggets at her. Like, I think that this could be something that's successful. Speaking of Manistee Beverage, and you know, she's a CPA. I mean, she's type A, but she's very much like I'm the idea person, right? Like I've got a million ideas for everything. And she very much was reeling, but it was great because it forced me to really focus on it. And then her and I have an amazing business relationship. So communicating with each other is number one. So, well, I guess what I'm getting at is when we finally decided we were going to do this, I mean, we had all the steps. Like, all right, this is what we're willing to spend to get it going, and then this is when we got to make a decision to sell it or to scale more. And so I knew what the ceiling was going to be. I mean, I knew that at the level that we were starting, we weren't going to outpace Meyer. We weren't going to outpace Family Fare in terms of volume. But I knew I was going to be, I just knew it. And people say, well, how did you know? It was just in my fucking brain. I knew we were going to be number one. Aside from those two outlets in Manistee County. And we were, and it didn't take long. I mean, there was a lot of bumps in the roads in the first 6 months to a year, figuring out customer wants, needs, and versus what I wanted to see. But man, we changed fast and got to a point where we reached the volume, we reached the dollar amount, and then it was starting to plateau. And I'm like, all right, so this is the linchpin in the whole thing. Are we going to sell it now, or am I going to sell this building and go buy bigger building on US 31 and try to now compete with Myers,
Right.
Family Fare, pull business from Ludington.
Yeah.
And the more we talked about it, the more it was like, more employees, more time invested. It's romantic to be an entrepreneur and to run businesses. It really is. But like the nuts and bolts, the day to day, the constantly on your phone, can't take a day. I didn't take a vacation the whole time we owned Manistee Beverage. Great. And I'm doing shit now where like my youngest daughter who's 9, we just signed her up for this thing in Ludington. You might be familiar with it because of the UP 906 Adventure Team.
Oh yeah.
Dude, what a fucking rad little thing for kids and cycling. And like my youngest is not really into like team stuff but this, I showed her a couple of videos and she's all in. So I signed up to be a volunteer, and it's every Tuesday basically from 5 to 8. And I would never have been able to do that if I was still running a business, And I don't look back on things in my life as a mistake, because I have older kids. But I have this like really interesting, mindset about everything. When you have older children and then you have another child that's 10 years younger, it's you just look at things different. And as you get older, as you get older, you're like, I don't need to do all this rah-rah, take on the world shit. I'm very comfortable where I'm at, and I'm blessed in that. So being able to just say, yeah, I'm totally going to volunteer for that, and she's going to do it, and we're going to do it every Tuesday, and it's going to be rad. And I would never have been able to do that.
Right.
So that's a long story to talk about scaling.
Yeah.
But it's real, to your point. Like, what do we do now?
Right.
We've reached this level.
Right. Yeah.
And if we don't, somebody else is going to come in.
Yeah.
So then you start thinking about like real competition and what are you going to do? So it's like, you know what? We're just going to sell this thing.
I love that so much. I mean, the relationship, that working relationship, as husband and wife is remarkable, and I think it's pretty rare to see.
I think so too.
And Dominique and I have a similar thing, which is really great. But the ability to take ego out of that, where I could see a lot of scenarios of that going down, where it's like, I want to for myself, and then you kind of create this story of, it's for everybody else too. Yeah. And it sounds like your ability to, one, create that rough plan of a glass ceiling to start, knowing that, like, this is going to come, it's smart business. Quality of life, it's net positive, man. I think it's super respect for being able to do that, because I've definitely seen situations where that can go south. And
you can lose your business if all of a sudden you think that scaling is the right move, and then you over leverage and it doesn't work out. Yeah. And then you have nothing. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. And then to be able to spend time with her, that's just, it's the best.
Like right now, Betsy's CPA, which was clutch too, by the way. I'm not blind to the fact that she specializes in business tax. Yeah. And she does all of the accounting for that business and the other businesses that I have, and that's not cheap. Right. So there's a lot of her equity in all of this. Yeah. But yeah, it's our relationship is definitely, I really appreciate the fact that we have this. I think you really need it. If you're going to have a partner, you need the yin and the yang. Yeah. Some of the best mentors that I've had, one of them is calm, quiet, collected. The other one is fiery and wants to do everything. But when they get together, it's like, okay,
Yeah, this magic comes. It's produced because, the sum of all the parts, I love it. And it's funny, and I love that we're able to do this. I think we've known about each other, but I've been thinking about that with how that works as a business relationship, but I was thinking about the personal side of that at home with the kids, and you were putting out that content of the two of you just cooking, opening wine.
Yeah, during COVID and all that shit.
Yeah. So I was like, how much of that is just pure fun and does she like the camera side of it? Does she
that's a good question. Now, I purposely don't do a whole lot of my kids and stuff in the content or Betsy. But Betsy's was really the driver for all the wine stuff at the store. Yeah. We had a newsletter with a couple hundred members in our wine club, and she'd do all the tasting notes and everything, and it was really her idea. She was like, well, we should do some where we taste the wine, talk about the wine, stuff like that. It was kind of like an evolution. I mean, I enjoy going back and watching some of the first videos, like, geez, I didn't know what I was doing, bro. But I think they're getting better.
They're great, but it was real, and it's honest, and it's like she's not just running the numbers, having to be the the chief reality officer in the background, but she cares about there's a product buy-in that you both are passionate about, which I think is super important and super cool. Yeah,
and I've had her on the podcast, and we track, and we are very similar people, and very similar in our views and our outlook on life and how to raise kids, and what we talk about at home is everything. I mean, we don't necessarily say, all right, guys, sit down, we're going to talk about the business. We have dinner together every night, and conversations go where they go, and I think that's important. Number one, when it comes to kids, they feel your stress, they feel your excitement, they feel your joy, they see it, and they're talking about it to each other, so you might as well just bring it out on the table, and if you're stressed about something and you're communicating it and they're a part of the conversation, then they have skin in the game too, whether they realize it or not, because especially if you own a business, it directly affects them positively and negatively. So, and with somebody like me who's always on camera, having conversations about what that's like, my oldest daughter the other day was like, where do you go? How are you making money? And I was like, oh, well, we make some income from this, and I do marketing for other companies. And, when I left Manistee Beverage, I was like, I'm not doing anything for like a year. I'm just going to focus on the podcast and the races and just be more present. But you know how it is, Jesse. And I'm like,
I feel you.
I can only clean the garage so many times. I got to do something. So it wasn't 6 months, and I was approached by some businesses to do some social media, and I'm like, I'll do it. It's not going to take me that long to do this stuff. I can do that. I can do this. Get with the races. I just feel more like, but also all the freedom, because I can't do that today. I'm going to do this thing. So,
Do you like? Because there's that entrepreneurial drive where there's hunger and there's a necessity to make these bills. And that can also, some people are just motivated by that. But then it's like, you see it where people get so comfortable, they lose some of that edge, and maybe they're not fighting as hard. But it sounds like you've struck a really good balance with, like, you're a producer, you want to create, you want to build something. But it sounds like it's a good slot to be able to do all the other things that create value. Not taking a day off for that many years is taxing, and I think we're somewhat similar in that, where burnout has been something that kind of is a thief in the night, where it'll sneak up, and so like being aware of those parameters and then figuring out this balance and where we are in life, and it's tricky, but it's interesting, the phases of that.
The first 6-8 months, I was key in, key out, 12, 14 hours a day, working at home. You don't think about that stuff when you're new to, I had jobs where I wore suits every day and had teams of 104, and that stress is, I think, different than this, because it's all on you. Blessed because, we're really financially conservative, so we had enough to do this on our own. Betsy's got a great job, so I didn't take any income. In fact, I took no income the entire time I owned the company, just enough to pay Social Security and all that stuff. That was the paycheck, was $0. Everything else was paid in. And you know, what a lot of people don't realize is that really small business owners really don't see the fruits of their labor until after they sell the business. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a misconception. I mean, people think they're just it's Scrooge McDuck.
Yeah.
You're in the back just, you know, stacking but it is, you know, it's like it's a lot of people I don't even think know that. You know, it's 3 years before you're even taking anything, like if that.
Yeah.
So that's
if you have to take, I've always said, if you have to take an income from the business that you're starting up, you probably shouldn't start it up yet.
Yeah, right.
Because if you need the income on a product that you're not, that hasn't even hit the market yet, you probably shouldn't do it. Right. You need to retool that. You need to figure something out.
Yeah. It's a hustle, man.
So back to you know, shorts, and then now you moved on to Ironfish.
Yeah.
How did that come up?
So I left shorts, and I kept hearing whispers of this magical place out in Thompsonville. I'd never been to Thompsonville, but people kept talking. You know, the younger kids at shorts at the time were just like, and distilling was still in its infancy stage. It wasn't shifting places with the beverage market, like craft beer. You know, that decline was slowly happening. But I was out there for a family trip, and I just stumbled into this, you know, spot. It was like a July day, and Sarah Anderson was working. You know, I mean, all owners are just hands-on at all time, and didn't know what to expect. And you know, just packed. That tasting room at the time was a lot different, but Sarah waited on me, and didn't know she was the owner. But it was just, you know, you walk in, you felt seen, and you know, like it was there was something special that you couldn't quite articulate outside of hearing. Super cool, man. They have barrels, and you know but I just left feeling like there's something really special about this, and ended up getting Sarah's info and got to meet Richard and just talked myself into a job, and that was 2018. And from there, it's just been an absolute blast.
A rocket ship. From the outside, I mean, from just me looking at it, like, geez, I mean, so you started in 2018. And we cracked the doors. I mean, we formed our LLC in 17, and 18 we were rocking and rolling. And I mean, a couple of months in, we were selling Ironfish. Yeah. And, you know, Richard came to the store. I just meet Richard for the first time, but now it just seems. Speaking of Sarah, dude.
Yeah.
I mean, every time I go to Ironfish, she is either washing dishes,
I know.
bartending, out on the floor, and she was doing the local, like, sales rep, you know, marketer in the market thing. And I'm like, it amazes me how, like you said, hands-on, but like just in it. They're just
right
in it. You know, I can't say too much about Richard. I don't know if he's mostly a handshake guy lately, but
no, he's still on the front lines. Yeah, he's still on the front lines, and all four owners. You know, David Height the same way. I mean, it's just like this Power Rangers crew, and it's really hard not to be inspired when the ownership is on the battlefield with you. You know, and you hear a lot of people. They're just sitting back or taking time, but it's just relentless work ethic, and it's impressive. You know, Shorts was very much, you know, Joe Shorts, you know, one of the hardest working guys in the, you know, almost to a fault. It's just his passion, and nothing's really changed. I'll be honest, like they're still grinding. We're still trying to navigate this future with alcohol, you know.
So because of the growth has been. You know, I mean, rick house after rick house, barrel. I mean, hundreds and hundreds of barrels of whiskey, and you know the collaborations that you guys are doing. Like, what competition? I mean, for Michigan, what competition is left? I mean, it's just such a recognizable. I did a reel the other day where I was just sitting on the couch, and Ironfish bottles in the background unintentionally, and all the comments were like, "Dude, Ironfish," and from a ton of people that I don't even know. Yeah. And I'm like, that's pretty sick, dude.
Yeah. It's from day one, and what really sold me on just I have to be part of this was Richard's approach to business and building brand equity was something that I think transcends the product itself. I mean, this is what we do. We know what we do. We know what our product is, but I love that approach. Just the way Sarah treated me walking in, not knowing who I was, that's those little things. And I feel like that's, at scale, is really tough, but it's synonymous with how people view this brand when they see it on a shelf. And that's, end destination is such a big part of our, it's our marketing machine. People come, we've injected them with the gospel of Ironfish, and we're hopeful that they go back and seek our products on the shelf. And now we're seeing that cycle come back around where people are like, I've been drinking your product in Detroit for years. I finally made the voyage to the homeland to see where this is made.
Isn't that
it's
awesome?
It's the coolest thing ever.
It is the coolest thing when people do that shit.
It's so cool. And you see this cycle happen. And so it is work. It is hard, and it's down to the bare bones, like the hand-to-hand combat of social media. We want to respond to every review, every comment. We want to get, anytime there's something that's, less than great with the experience, we want to make that up tenfold if we can. So, I mean, it's really, we care. And I think, it may sound like, but caring is the mantra of our marketing office. Is this Charlie Brown cartoon where he's just sitting there in the bus window with Linus, and he's like, caring's the coolest thing I've ever seen anyone do. And that's it. I mean, that's it. Like, that wins. You have to have a great product.
Yeah.
You have to have all these other things aligned, but I love that it's just a business of caring about people.
Who handles that interaction on social media?
So we have a team. So myself, Mackenzie, our designer marketing, and then Troy Anderson, Richard's son, who's coming to the fold, heavy, marketing, video, photography talent. Mm-hmm. And we all kind of collab and spearhead a lot of that. So there's three of us, and two of us are generally like all hands on deck, just making sure we're catching it and responding as fast as we can. And so
how do you really feel about that? And I say that because I mean there was a while where I would try to respond to every single comment. I would do the Benjamin Franklin thing on a bad review where I would type all my angers out and then delete it and then start over. And it got to a point where I was like, I'm just going to let some of this stuff just sit in the ether. Yeah. And let the wolf pack go after it if they need to, kind of thing, because sometimes people can just be shitty because they're shitty people, and oftentimes I think a bad review is unwarranted.
Right.
And it's never, in my opinion, I don't think it's ever a good idea to get into a back and forth online, in text form.
Yeah. Right.
But it kind of irks me sometimes. But I had a bad review once, and I think about this one. It lived in my head for a while because I wanted to be like, what the fuck? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So do you remember Douglas Valley Wines? Mm-hmm. They had a tasting room here. And then I started selling their wine because the tasting room wasn't open every day. Mm-hmm. It was only, at this point, it was only open like on the weekends or something like that. So I got some of their, what they sold the most of was like peach flavored shit and something else. And they put me on their website as a place that you can buy it. Okay. Well, then Douglas Valley went out of business, or they closed their shop, and I couldn't get any of their wine, and it was gone. So like a few months later, this group came in, these ladies, and they asked where the Douglas Valley wine was, and I'm like, well, we don't carry it because they're no longer distributing it. They're done as far as I know. And she said, well, you're on their website. I'm like, I can't control their website, but this is why we don't sell it anymore. And like that day, I got blasted on a Google review because I wasn't selling it. And I'm like, oh boy. I was telling Betsy, I'm like, should I? And I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to let this one go. Yeah. Because that's like ridiculous. Yeah. Like, what are you pissed at me for? Right. Right. Because they had me on their website as a They're just upset with their own inconvenience, not thinking about your, non-guilty party there. Dude, I had to send a lady a 15-cent check, and I was happy to send the check. But there was, I think I know I did. I had the tax wrong on a non-alcoholic product. It was like a soda or something,
Okay.
right? And it had tax on it. You don't tax, any beverages or whatever. And I didn't realize it. We had 10,000 items.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's easy to just go, yep. Anyways, blasted me. And I'm like, she's like, you owe me 15 cents. And I'm like, okay, what's your address? I can't credit your credit card,
right.
For 15 cents.
Right.
So I sent her a check. She never cashed it.
Wow. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I got all kinds of stories, dude. Yeah.
It's tough though, going back to that question, like, there's stuff that, and it's kind of, it's taking like you said, typing a response, deleting it, going back to it. Depending on where it comes in, I mean, you have stuff irrelevant to a post that's about something else that happened that you have to respond to in a public forum. Well, people reach out, DM, which is lovely, and they're like, hey, we had this, they don't want to publicly make a display of it, but they'll reach out. But I like it when we can, there's times where it's like, we're not going to win this battle, we're going to let it sit. If it's completely out of hand, well, maybe, we don't want to take things down, but there's times when it's a great opportunity to turn them into a brand ambassador to some degree, and that's not always the case. And then some people are just, we're so sorry, how can we make this up to you? Please reach out. We'll try to diffuse it. We also don't want to exploit that either to show that, but we want to respond as much as we can, But yeah, there's just times where people are going to troll. And we've been pretty lucky considering at scale, you're just going to have a lot more of that.
The bigger you get.
And they're like, you're not the same, like what happened, and then pricing is another thing, cost of goods has gone up so much. So it's like, it's hard for people to get their head around that from a business perspective. But we do the best we can, not perfect at it, but we try to, and it's, it's tricky.
And you're entrenched in it, just like I am. I mean, are your kids on social media?
They are. Yeah.
Now, how old's your oldest?
He's 17.
Okay.
Yeah. So he's still a part of that Snapchat era, which I was never really got into it. Actually, I'm trying to do some stuff on it because I feel like at some point, because like I talk to my kids, like my oldest daughter, that's how I talk to her. Which is fine. The unique thing about social media is that I'm always connected to her. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And we have like a 700-day snap streak,
okay,
I think it's called, and it's
okay.
just me. I'll just like post a goofy one of the filters and send it to her. And she does the same thing back, and we keep it going. But it's a great way to like say, all right, Dad's thinking about you. My son, we just do texting. My son's like on Discord.
Okay.
He plays games and stuff with his buddies on Discord. So I was always asking them as they were growing up. As social media, it's like, what are the kids on?
Right.
What are they looking at? Because if I'm going to go after that from a marketing standpoint, I want to know where you're at.
Right.
Because at some point, these people are going to be consumers.
Right.
And I want to make sure that I'm tackling that, but then also like, so I see what they send me. I know what they're watching. It's pretty timid shit, which is good. And they're not really messing with like TikTok.
No, they're not.
I mean, I think this youngest below 21 generation is like, I don't know if I'm down for that. They're definitely not on Facebook.
Right, they're not on Facebook at all.
Neither of my kids have a Facebook page.
Yeah, it's a whole different game. It's like a boomer game.
Yeah.
I take my youngest Violet, or daughter, she's definitely part of that, like, the TikTok culture is very much a part of like a girl's way to, they're thinking about beauty and there's a negative side of that, but she's active on that. But the thing that is remarkable to me, and I remember this happened when my oldest graduated from 5th grade, and 7 years ago, they have the 5th grade graduation in the gym, and every kid is coming up and talking about what they want to be when they grow up. And there was like 35 kids in the class, and I I think 5 of them were firefighters and policemen, but the rest were YouTube. They want to be YouTube influencers.
I've heard that shit online, and I'm like,
on?
that's real, hey?
Like, what? And it's like, that was Mr. Beast, I think, may have been putting some stuff out, but it was pre what we have now. And I was just blown away. I'm like, you, that's a real thing. But they consume so much on YouTube. I would say YouTube is just,
yeah.
And I love YouTube.
So do I.
I can learn so many things, you know. It's phenomenal, but I just saw a piece today, actually. It popped up. It was talking about today's celebrities and, you know, YouTube stars.
Yeah, I mean, they're not movie stars anymore.
Mr. Beast, like, those are the ones that are just dominating, you know, teenagers right now. You know, they don't care about Tom Cruise. They care about Mr. Beast, you know? And it's fascinating. It is that, like, going back to this, like, that leveled the playing field, you know? Same with music. And we took away the gatekeeper. Now everybody can kind of level up, and they have a platform to do it. I love it. There's a downside to it, for sure. But,
I'd be lying if I said I didn't love it.
Yeah, I do. Yeah. It's great. And just the way kids communicate, like, you know, Violet, she'll be... This trips me out too, like getting ready, you know, prepping for volleyball or dance, and she's got her iPad up, and there's 6 of her friends just doing the same thing. And they're not even talking, but they're just doing it together, you know? And like sometimes people think that's weird, too much technology, too much screen time. There's a point of that, but also it's like they're just being social. Yeah. Is it any different than me being on the phone?
No, that little anecdote there is... It's refreshing to hear because I've never heard that before, but they are being social.
They are being social.
You know, it's not like she's just watching or listening to a YouTube video while she's getting ready. Yeah. There is some interaction with her friends there, which is great, because that's one of the things I wanted to talk to you about is, you know, raising kids. My older 2, a different marriage, divorced from their mother. And it was at a time, I mean, I was super young. I was 24 when I had my son, and 23 or 24. And it wasn't long after that. Then we had my daughter, but then really quickly after that, we divorced. And I lived in Detroit for a while, so did my ex, and then my ex moved back, which was great because they gave me an opportunity. Because I was like, I'm just going to be where the kids are. You know, I'll figure it out. I've always been a salesman, so it wasn't hard to find a job selling something. And but the difference between raising them and raising my 9-year-old, completely different. I mean, because we had a 50-50 custody relationship, you know, so only having them half the time. And my youngest was in kindergarten when I met Betsy. And so, and my son was like in first or second grade. And so she's been there along the way to help in that part-time stuff. But it was always like, what are we going to do when they're here? We got to do something because they're only here half the time. Yeah. And, you know, the differences in the households are very, very different. But with my 9-year-old, it's like we can go do all kinds of shit all the time. And we're always outside, especially her. She's always outside. And sometimes Betsy's like, you know, somebody's going to call CPS on us because our 9-year-old's just running around doing whatever outside. But it's true. And, you know, sometimes I think my older kids, if I was to take them and plop them in 1985, I'd be standing there with a stopwatch to see how long they last. You know, because when we were kids, it was like as feral as they got. I always tell the story. When I was growing up, we lived about a quarter mile away from this gas station. And my mom would write a note to get 2 packs of Marlboro menthol greens, 2 liter of Pepsi, and whatever else, right? And give me the cash. And I'd just go there and give the lady at the counter the note. And she'd grab 2 packs of cigarettes, and I'd go get 2 liter and whatever else we needed and walk home. So what the fuck? You can't do that today. No. You know what I mean? Just little stuff like that. Great. I watched the video where this woman got arrested because her like 11-year-old kid was walking downtown to the store or whatever, and they were like, that's child endangerment. And she's like, he can totally walk to the store. He's very confident. He knows what he's doing. He knows where he's going. Like, don't come here and tell me how to raise my kid. So then I'm Googling like how old can you be,
Yeah.
or how young can you be to be out on your own, like just walking around the neighborhood? And for Michigan, I specifically put in Michigan, and it was 10 based on the child's, you know, mental ability to navigate. You know, I'm like, oh, okay. So, I mean, there's legitimate, like, laws out there that are like, no, you can't. I'm like, oh, you know, but 200 years ago, 11-year-olds were sailing across the ocean because, you know, their family needed money, and the only place to make it was in America.
Right. Exactly. And back then, the stakes were higher. We didn't have the communication that we had now. So it's like, if we got into trouble, we're running to a payphone, if we even have quarters, or, you know, we're finding a police, like, it wasn't the same. So it's like, these kids are going to be fine. Yeah, they can be home for a half. You know, we're gonna figure this out. But it's so different. It's so different. But it's so. I love the feral child. Like we talked about the drinking out of the water hose. Yeah, it's like we were reckless and wild, and you had to be outside. You know, and I'm grateful we didn't have technology at that time. I get, as a parent, the pacifier of this that makes it, but. We were forced into doing that, and it was the best. You know, you learn a lot. You get a few scrapes and bruises, you know, but that's good. It really is so good. You know, you're learning the resiliency. Yeah. You know, you're learning how to make decisions on your own, good or bad. Yeah. You know, and you don't have to say shit when you come home. Right. If you made it home, you're good. Exactly. We would do shit like we moved around a lot when I was younger. My parents were renters, you know, and in this one area where the high school kids would always have parties in the woods down this big gully. They burned like couches and shit. And I can remember being 10, 11, getting my buddy down the street, another buddy on like a Sunday, ride our bikes down in there, collect all the beer cans, take them to the store, buy shit. Nice. I mean, lighting fires in the woods. Yeah. Oh. You know, we would play with bows and arrows, shooting at each other with BB guns. BB gun wars. I mean, that's living. It's so living, dude. And the only means of transportation was a bike. I mean, I would ride miles just to get into town and hang out with my boys for the day. Yeah. Same. I would skate. It was 2 miles when we moved. When I was in middle school, we moved, and it was like a 2-mile skate into town. And I would just to be with the homies and skate the curb. You know what I mean? Like, that was the best. We loved it. We fought so hard for it. And, and then I think about kids now that, I mean, we're in northern Michigan. I feel it's a little different, but I don't know if you've heard the statistics around kids not getting their license. Yeah. It's like, that was freedom. As soon as that happened, it was like, this is our ticket to go experience things. And they have technology, so it's like, what else do they need? I get that's part of it, but it blew my mind to hear some of these, like some of Jonah's friends are like, we're just not gonna get our license, we're good. You're good? Yeah, like, dude, I don't want to drive you around. Yeah, right. You know, that was my parents. Right. You know, we're not, get your license. Right. We're done driving you around. Yeah. You know, if you got to go someplace, you go. Yeah. And that's a real thing, the not getting a license or just not being social or finding a girlfriend. I don't know how many kids today are in like high school relationships. You know, it seems like it's super low. I know it is. You know, and there's a lot of fear with, you know, asking a girl or a boy out today, and I see it. I mean, I could go down a dark path with some of this stuff, but like isolation and shit like that, especially with young men, it's like really, it's a thing, and I see it. And again, not to go dark, but man, I mean, like suicide rates are up, and it's really wild. And it seems like, I mean, just this year alone, there's been a bunch here. It's the young people, and you quit, and you're like, this never happened when I was a kid. Right. I'm telling you, like, I never was like, oh, that person did this, or this guy did that to himself. It's like, that never happened. Yeah. And now it seems like there's a lot of it. There's so much. And I really firmly believe it's because we've allowed ourselves to detach socially. And I think that's the darker side of like social media. But a lot of that stuff came out of like COVID when they were locking everybody up and saying you can't leave the house because you're going to kill grandma, and businesses got to shut down, and everybody's behind masks and freaking out. And they didn't count the emotional costs when factoring, you know, and that's there's lots of sides to that, but it was tough. You
Yeah,
know,
dude.
churches shutting down. It was a lifeline of people with addiction problems. I mean, there was a lot.
Yeah.
It's a dark time for sure. But loneliness is it's an epidemic, you know. It's sad. And you think with, you know, I think that's a double-sided technology. In
Yeah.
some ways, it can be a tool to create this social
Right.
connection. And I think sometimes it pushes people farther away, but people are lonely.
Yeah, especially if you get tribal about shit.
Right,
which
right.
is-
Yeah,
which is
exactly.
nuts.
Exactly. So, but, man, it's Gen X, man.
Yeah, let's get back to the fun
Like
shit.
Gen X. You know?
What year were you born?
76.
Okay.
Yeah.
78.
Yeah.
Definitely in the heat of the moment. I would tell my older kids sometimes when we start talking generationally.
Yeah.
You know, because I hate being the guy that's like, well, back in my day, but the older I get, the more I say it. So I understand where it comes from. But I was telling the story the other day. So you were in the skating.
Mm-hmm.
I was never really in the skating. I mean, Northern Michigan, when I was growing up, there was a group that were like, we would call the skaters or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But I never really got into that, but definitely into BMXing and stuff like that. But as I got a little bit older, like in high school, you know, I went through more of the fashion trend kind of stuff. I mean, I evolved from, I was a khakis and like polo kid to like Boys to Men style, wearing the bibs with one side down. Brief phase of hammer pants.
Yes.
Dude,
Yes.
the hammer pants.
Hammer pants
Like if
were
you didn't
me.
have that or penny roll in your jeans, I mean, I was like, I'll just follow the trends as they come.
Yeah.
And then grunge.
Yeah.
You know,
is so-
flannels, and that was perfect for Northern Michigan.
Oh, it was
You know,
great.
throw on a flannel or Carhartt, you're good to go.
It was great. It was
But, like,
great.
I don't see any of that shit today.
No.
I think some of the 80s vibe is for sure coming back. And I don't know if it's because of my algorithm, because I watch and listen to all like 80s style podcasts. People talk about the 80s and 90s, and you know, all the retro shit comes through my feed. It's like, have you ever seen there's like a video meme of like we actually like the universe was created in 1980.
Oh yeah.
You know, those things.
Yeah. It's so great. It's so great.
Oh, and then when you were reached out to me and like the Rad movie,
yeah.
I mean, I'm like, oh, those are. I mean, that was my jam when I was a kid.
That was mind blowing. I'm so happy this documentary about that movie.
I can't wait.
I'm so hyped. We should go see it.
Yeah.
I'd love to go see it with you. That was pre-skating for me. So like that was before the Veriflex, but like that was, and I saw that clip of him throwing papers and doing that 360 out of the pool, and it just blew my mind. Absolutely blew my mind. Like, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And it was so iconic, and like the music, you know, the tricks and the dance, like it was just everything about that. It was epic, and that was very much the eight. That's to me like encapsulates the best part of the 80s. Is that movie one of the best parts?
I mean, that movie was the reason why I wanted a BMX bike. You know, now I didn't get a BMX bike. I got like a cheaper version, but you know what? Nobody gave a shit.
Right.
You know,
Right.
Still trying to do tricks. I got a buddy that was heavily into BMX here and like try to do competitions and
Nice.
stuff like that. I'm like, man,
Nice.
that was, you know, it was one of those things where I never really fully got into it, but had the bike, tried the
Yeah.
tricks, did the
Yeah.
jumps. I mean, it's on it all the time.
Yeah.
You know, but yeah, to your point, encapsulating the 80s and like why for us, our generation growing up in it, none of the stuff that was like happening, any of the political stuff or
Right.
the hardships our parents were going through, we didn't know.
Right.
We were just out being kids.
Right.
Right?
Yep.
I mean, I so badly wanted a mall
Yeah.
just so I could hang out in it.
Yeah.
Like all of my idols on TV.
Yeah.
They either worked at a mall in a movie or they were hanging out in the mall.
Yeah.
And like the whole school was involved. It was like what you did after school or all summer long is go hang out at a mall because you didn't know if Tiffany was going to show up.
Right.
Or Debbie Gibson.
Right. Your parents could drop. It was mall culture. We were talking about this a couple of weeks ago. Like, you know, it's one of those. It's on the ropes a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, malls are struggle. It's tough. I get it. I think COVID was tough, but there was so much a scene around the mall for us. You know, so much. That's it. Dropped off. Josephine might be there. Maybe you know, like it was amazing. That's sacred. I think my kids haven't quite. They like, you know, we'll go. I guess we'll go to the mall if it's.
Yeah, but you're going to the mall now as a purpose.
As a purpose, you know, and so it's a little different, you know. But yeah, that was such a big part of American culture back then. So great.
I don't know if there's anything like that today. You know, where kids can. I think what we find is that there's always someone or a group of people that are trying to create something for kids to do.
Yeah.
And I've always been the kind of person that's like, kids aren't going to do it. Mm-mm. You can't create something and say, this is a place for kids to come and then supervise it.
Right.
They don't want to do that shit.
Right.
Every generation.
Yeah.
There is no, like, I mean, we have places here like the Armor Youth Project, which I think they do a really good job. They have a gymnasium. They have all kinds of shit there. I don't know how well attended it is. Mm-hmm. I would always ask my kids and their friends, do you guys ever go there? And they're like, no. It's very just fluorescent lighted.
Okay.
Very much like a story that I've told before. I don't know if this translates to anything that you grew up with, but we had Friday and Saturdays, we had a little club that the high school kids could go to. Mm-hmm. It was called The Palace. Okay. And for the locals my age that are watching this, they'll appreciate it. So we're, do you know where the bowling alley is south of town? Mm-hmm. All right, where Subway is. Okay. That was a restaurant in there. It was called Armito's. It was like an Italian restaurant. I remember it being fire when I was a kid. I loved going there for dinners with my parents. But in the basement, they had this little teen center club, right? And Kevin Kimball was the DJ. And, it was Poison. It was Motley Crue, you know, and you name the 80s rock bands. That's what they were playing. Maybe got into a little of the street rap from back in the day. Mirrors on the dance floor all the way around, and it was fucking dark, dude. The lights were coming from the DJ booth, and then over the top of the pool tables. So they had pool table, foosball, and then they had like booth seating in there, and you could order food from this little kiosk, pay for it with cash, and they would dumb wheel it down. Right, you'd get like breadsticks and shit. Anyways, it was $5 to go get in. Okay. Friday and Saturday. Friday was the GOAT night. That's the night that everybody went. Saturday was kind of like, you know, maybe it wasn't a packed house, but Fridays for sure. And you went every single week, dude. And it's freshman through senior. Yeah. You know, we're all there together just letting it out. The supervision was literally the DJ. Yeah. You know, that's it. No parents, no nothing. Some people are gonna be like, well, that's crazy, but nope, there was never any fights. Right. That's the first time I got French kissed, which was wild, bro. You know, a bunch of, 14, 15, 16-year-olds walking around with hard-ons all day. I mean, that's all that testosterone and going through puberty, and you're like, this is going to be so, I can't fucking wait to go because it's going to be, tonight I'm kissing her. Yeah. You know? Yeah. And then the school built a teen, which is over by the skate park. Do you know where that is? Yep. They built that teen center there, and nobody went. Oh, man. I mean, I think we went for the first couple of weeks, and it was like, you got adults in there standing and watching. Yeah. There's no DJ. They were just kind of playing music on the radio. They wanted it out of there. I don't know why it closed there. I don't know who was getting the money for it. I don't know if it was, the people that owned the building had this thing going on, but it was just for teens. It was just for high school kids, and they moved it over there, and it's like it's so underutilized today. Yeah, was that an organic thing where they're like, maybe the owners had a kid that they just wanted to build this place for? I mean, it sounds like the recipe for success: low lights, low supervision. Yeah. I mean, it just sounds like I couldn't tell you. It was there. It was going on before I was in high school, and then as I was going in, and now I don't think I went there a whole lot when I was a senior, but it definitely vaporized. Okay. Once they built this other building for it, And I'm telling you, dude, it's because I don't want to be supervised.
Right.
If we're not doing anything wrong, we're not doing drugs here or anything like that, you know. And that's why that shit fails. And I've said it over and over and over again.
Yeah.
If you want kids to have an outlet, you can't, be a thumb on them.
Right. And you can't over manufacture it. It has to be, there is that, or let the kids think that they found the secret clubhouse.
Yeah.
There's some of that too.
Yeah.
That's why, oh man, what a beautiful time. We had in Lansing, Ed Drew roller rink. So I got to have like the tail end of that roller skating experience as a kid. The first time holding the girl's hand during the slow skate to Tiffany.
Yeah.
That was epic. That was so
that
epic.
Is
buying sweet tarts. Like that was, and that spot got pretty congested. It wasn't whole, so it had a ton of, it got rough. There's some fights that broke out, but that was like our clubhouse for a minute, you know? And then you get a little older and then you kind of break off into these subculture groups. But, oh man, that's a hard thing to just replicate, And it's like, I just think about any of my kids being like, a bunch of adults are going to make a spot for you.
I know why I didn't go there that much I don't think I did go there when I was a senior in high school. First of all, I was an older kid. So I turned 19 when I graduated in August. And there was a place downtown, right over there. It was called Fast Eddie's. And it was a bar.
Okay.
But I want to say Friday, but I can't believe he did it on a Friday. I think it was like a Thursday or something like that. It would be teen night. 18 could go in there. And, dude, that's where we went. Because he didn't exclude the people that were old enough to drink. But 18-year-olds could get in. You show your ID. You can get in. You can party.
Yep.
I mean, not drink, but you can hang out, listen to the DJ, and you just have a good time.
Yeah.
And they don't do shit like that anymore.
No, they don't. They don't. There was a spot like that, exactly like that in Lansing called Sparty's, where it was like you got the 18-year-olds in. They're able to kind of reach up to, maybe they smoke a drink or two. But, it was a party zone, same DNA. Low lights, musician, to bar, super cool. But those, and I think liability, too. People get nervous about liability. I feel like, another tangent of drinking culture, it's just there was something about, just this mystique around being close to that.
Yeah.
It's different.
And as our kids don't imbibe like we used to when we were young.
Yeah.
With beer and maybe even a little bit of liquor. I can remember going to upperclassmen parties and being like, we're going to have some beers here because everybody's drinking beer. And there was like this social, it kind of waters everybody down a little bit, and you get a little bit looser and you get more people and stuff. I'm not condoning it. I'm just saying, as a father, I'm kind of, there's a part of me that's glad that my kids don't drink. My son's 21. He doesn't drink.
Yeah.
He doesn't like it. And I'm like, they're not doing drugs or anything like that, which is great. But there's also a part of me that's like, that whole thing stopped. I don't know when it stopped, but like kids aren't going out in the woods and drinking beers and having bonfires and forming these like friendships and doing all these. They're doing something else. And I don't know what it is. If it's just online Discord or like you said with your daughter, having like a group video chat with all her friends. But some of that stuff, there's for me, there's a romantic thing with alcohol and like the bar scene.
Yeah.
I never was one. I never really enjoyed like the shot and beer places late at night, but I do appreciate going to a nice tavern, having a couple of dude. Like right now, I'm just thinking about just like when I got goosebumps. I say, hey Jesse, why don't you meet me at the bar? And then we come in, and maybe we're just kind of like, we haven't even had a beer yet. We're just sitting down, and we're like, hey, how's it going? Good. And then get that first pour of the draft, gets put out in front of you. It's fucking ice cold. It smells delicious. Take a couple of sips, and then all of a sudden, it's like, hey, let's, and then it's one more. One more. It's so engaging. Obviously there's a level where it's like, well, we probably had too much, but that sense of Like, it just kind of brings people together. It loosens you up. You start, being a little bit more freer with your communication. And yeah, I mean, I don't drink anywhere near the way I used to when I was younger.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you that just having that ice cold beer at a tavern with somebody.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Pulling that cold bottle of Pabst out of that freezer. It's just steam, and then that first sip. Like, it's just a magical. Yeah, we talk about it a lot too. This idea of like the best parts of drinking culture really were about this social interaction. Right. I mean, we all know the negative sides of this, but there is that. Like, everything tends to shift. And I think drinking culture is kind of going the way of big tobacco. In some ways, I think it's starting to move Jonah the same way. He could. There's part of me that's like, can you just at least pretend like you're going to drink this vodka and fill it up with water? I just, the idea that there's some curiosity, but it's very much just not on their radar. Yeah. It's just different. But going back to relationships, I mean, that is a big part of
dating.
Just dating is being able to have that. Let's loosen up a little bit. But no, I feel you, man. I get the same goosebumps thinking about that. The smell of that dive bar, the pool table cracking. Like, it's just a magical thing. I don't know. It's a tough one to figure out. But I think everything tends to cycle back around.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. Are you seeing dips in the alcohol sales based on some of that stuff? Because it's like, as somebody who's in the culture, I never could. I enjoy non-alcoholic beer, a good non-alcoholic beer, but I can't do the NA spirit thing. No. And these mocktail things that are going around, it defeats the purpose.
Yeah, it does.
Why don't you just have a Diet Coke?
It's like the Impossible Burger. I think of it's funny everybody I think is struggling a little bit to figure out where it lands. Wine kind of had craft beer cycled up. I think spirits are definitely the belle of the ball, but it is changing, and the NA stuff is just wild to me. Like, people making NA gin. Now there's definitely this spike that we're seeing a lot, but it's not the same social norms as, like we were talking about. If you go to a party and you're not drinking, it's uncool. So if you don't want to drink, you're either pouring water in a can or you're trying to make it look like you're drinking. Now you can be the coolest dude ever with a LaCroix. So it's like, you know what I mean? Like, those social norms have shifted, but it's like NA cocktails. Like, these kids they don't even know what a old fashioned is. So
or gin and tonic.
Gin and tonic. So it's like, you have to have a taste for it. Beer, I get the NA beer. I mean, they have a legacy of boomers that have come and gone and they appreciate this flavor profile. Yeah. I get it. I think that's always going to be a category that stays around, but I think everything else might be a little shorter lived depending on how this goes down. It's a tough one. It's a tough one.
Like I was telling you before we got on about the SAP camp.
Yeah.
I was at.
Yeah.
These are bourbon drinkers.
Yeah.
And bourbon aficionados. Okay. So they had the gamut of, you look at it for an allocation, it was probably there.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But somebody brought this NA bourbon. And it was just, the bottle was just sitting there, and a couple of guys were like, Jesus. They said, hey, you should try this. To me. Like, all right. And it was in a cup like this, and I smelt it and immediately was like, well, that is not good. And I took a drink out of it. I'm like, who the fuck? This isn't not even a remote, and it was like $70.
Yeah, that's
like, what are you paying for? Chemicals for starters.
Right.
I mean, they're trying to make this taste like something, but it tastes. It's like kerosene.
Yeah.
And I've had my, let's face it, during COVID, everybody was drinking heavily.
Oh yeah.
And then there was kind of like when the shift started with the NA stuff, we started picking up. Some of the NA mixers and stuff like that. You can make a mojito out of this or whatever.
Yeah.
And then Betsy'd be like, why don't we just do a mocktail tonight? Make a mojito or whatever. And, some of it mixed correctly. It's like, yeah, I get it. It kind of tastes like it. But like, why? I just have a glass of water.
Exactly. That's exactly it. That's exactly it. It's a trend, like a lot of things, it's like the black IPA, it's like things come and go, and I think people like to throw all their chips on things if something else isn't working, but it's like I haven't seen it produced really well. and I just think of the Impossible Burger. It's the antithesis of something else. So it's like either its own thing, not trying to be, the clean version of something else. So I don't know, man. It's wild, but everybody's trying to figure that out. I mean, the sober choice, that lifestyle, I think is amazing. I have some dear friends that have taken that route, and it's like I'm beyond grateful and happy, and like people are making choices, but then everything kind of shifts to this. There's the moderation seems to be gone, where it's like, now, like vegetarians, like how someone's vegetarian? Don't worry, they'll tell you, at least 20 times. It's like there's that. So it becomes this like platform for people to preach versus going out and like just enjoying. I don't know. I think it's tough. It's hard. We have a hard, just culturally, we have a hard time with moderation. It's just one extreme to the next. So
I'm trying to. My buddy Tom, he calls it misting, where you can't dip your toes in the drinking beer every now and then. I'm training for this race, so I'm like, I'm really trying not to have 750,000 calories of beer a day.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Because I do love the taste of beer, dude. And so, like, one of the things I miss about the store is like days like Oberon Day.
Yeah.
And like people in other states, they don't get it because it's not that the beer is great, because I don't enjoy multiple Oberons.
Right. Right.
I like the first one of the year. Maybe I'll have two, and then throughout the summer, if somebody's got an Oberon, I'll drink it. But it was the anticipation for spring, building the displays, talking about it on social media. Spring's coming, guys. Oberon's coming. I was telling Betsy this the other day. I'm like, she'll say stuff like, Jay, you missed this or do you miss that? And I was just sitting on the chair the other day, and I said, I really miss Oberon Day. It was so rad to have people just rush to the store. Yeah. Just because they want to get that 12-pack or 6-pack or tall boy, just to say that just so they could take a picture of it and put it on Instagram. Yep. Hey, I got my Oberon. I went to TJ's here on Oberon Day, and I was meeting my buddy Dylan, for lunch. And he needed to eat early because he had some meeting to get to. So we were planning on meeting at 11:30, and I got in there like at 20 after 11. And I was going to get an Oberon. And I felt kind of like it was a little early, but I walked in and Mike, the bar manager, was standing there. He started laughing. He's like, we were wondering who the first one was going to be today because nobody was in there. But, I had the Oberon, had that experience, and it felt good.
Yeah. Just tradition and ritual is, I think I feel the same way. It's like whether or not it's the beer, it's the idea that people are gathering for something. It's like March Madness. It's like it's a reason to get together and consume something. And you see with just the way. I don't know if you've noticed a shift with like the Netflix approach to just putting out a series and then you binge it all. Yeah. And then you kind of see this other staggering of episodes released weekly. And we growing up, it's like we had one time Cosby Show was on at 7 p.m. And it was like we did that together. Like I don't know if that's a generational thing. People they like the idea of an excuse to get together and experience something, no matter what it is. But yeah, man, Oberon, it's special. What a special thing. And that's
I love to get into the conversations like, it doesn't taste like it did last year.
I know the batch, the nuance of the batches, like that batch was but you're outside, there's sunshine. Yep. It's community, but man, that's cool. And setting up those displays, just waiting for people to come in, like it's exciting.
To go back about with the kids, there's one thing I wanted to ask you was in raising your kids. So if you just take the millennial generation, I'm pretty sure that there are two different camps. There's the camp that's like me, who's like, just go outside and play, and if you're gonna fall in the creek, don't drown. Right. Right. And then there's the other where it's like soy milk, and grandma and grandpa do not feed the kids this. They're not allowed to watch this. You can't have them do this. And I know it would drive my mom nuts if I told her anything like that. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Like, and you see that, and not to just say soy milk. I drink soy milk sometimes, but like, there's a super protective parent
Yeah.
from our generation,
Yeah.
and then there's guys like us, I think. I
Yeah.
mean, I don't know
Yeah.
how.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that like when first having kids, it's like nobody prepares you for how crazy it is that you're in charge of making sure this little person stays alive.
Right.
You know?
Right. Exactly.
Then after that, after they
Yeah.
are walking,
Right.
it's
Right.
like, no, what there was a time when I feel like everything happened to me when I was 10 or 11, but we had a group of older kids in my neighborhood, and they came over to my house, and we had a little above ground pool, very little, like Kmart pool, and then we filled up balloons to have a water balloon fight, and I was getting absolutely destroyed by these balloons, and I was hunkered down underneath the kitchen window where my mom was doing the dishes, and they're just pelting me with these things, and I'm crying.
Yeah.
I'm like, stop, and I'm like, Mom, tell them to stop, and she's like, you wanted to have a balloon fight, you know?
Yeah.
And she's absolutely right.
Yeah.
What am I crying for?
Yeah.
They're not hurting me.
Yeah.
I'm just pissed
Yeah.
that they're all attacking me.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
know?
That's a different time, you know? That's a different time. Like the helicopter parenting approach versus like, you're going to figure this out.
Yeah.
I mean, that's, to answer your question, like, you know, Dominique and I have kind of the Brady Bunch story, you know, three, and she has one, and she's a younger millennial, you know, so like there's that side to it. But you do loosen up when you realize that how resilient they are.
Yeah.
You know, I remember the first time Jonah fell off the changing table, and I thought I broke my, you know what I mean? And then it's like it's like, hey, it's fine. But I'm definitely leaning to that more so. Middle son Charlie's 15. He's just a reckless feral child. Climbs every tree, pets every dog, swims in every river. You know, like just, and it's just, I think it's part of his DNA. But it's like we definitely encourage that recklessness, and I get it. Like as a parent, like this is a little stressful when kids are coming home, you know, a little battered, or they're getting sick, you know. But they're just being kids, and they're out doing stuff. They're experiencing life. But yeah, that, you know, Dominique is so great at, like, the healthy foods. And I kind of came off that, like, maybe single dad approach to, we'll figure this out. But it's nice to have that balance, you know. But every kid's different, you know. It's like there is, I think, figuring out, like, it's so hard just, like you said, keeping this beautiful child alive, figuring out what we're trying to protect them from, what we're not. And then when you do realize how resilient they are, and then you realize that they're not just part of you or your spouse, they're their own person. Yeah. Jonah's his own kid, and getting to know who they are, what they care about. And, you know, one size doesn't fit all when it comes to parenting or discipline. And, you know, like that's a whole different topic about how to create accountability and discipline as a parent, you know, especially in this day and age. Yeah. You know, it's like the timeout thing was a big part of the conversation. The kids were young, and it was like, you know, we tried to, you know, like discipline is crucial, you know, and then there you have like the extremes of maybe what we grew up with, which was far more, you know, fire and brimstone. But we learned, you know what I mean? Like we learned. So I don't like that's another part that I don't think I've necessarily mastered, but you try to figure it out. It is interesting, like the cultural approach, you know, the public view of how. I mean, boomers were notorious for just like you were talking about with having that time at dinner and then talking about the business together and having them be part of that conversation. I mean, there's so much that was just kept from, you know, I think. But being able to work through that and like, hey, we're disagreeing, but we want you to see how we cope and talk through it, you know, and I won't throw a chair through a window. You know what I mean? Like let's help them, you know, it's not always the neatest, but we're figuring out how to navigate that. So it's tough, man.
We are incredibly blessed because our parents, both sides, live here in town.
Yeah, that's cool.
But Betts's family owns a centennial farm. Her dad just kind of leases some of the property, but the kid, my youngest daughter and her two cousins, two boys, will go out to the farm. Or Mary just goes out to the farm. Like today. The spring break started today, so I took her out to the farm. And dude, the freedom that she has there, I mean, they have like a little creek running through that barely gets like 5 inches deep, right?
Yeah.
But the kids will go down and they'll play in the
that's the
creek
best.
together all day long. Yesterday,
Best.
Betsy gets a text from her mom, and it says one of the younger cousins had to come in and wash his hands because he touched a dead raccoon. So then Mary comes home, my 9-year-old, and I go, hey, who had to clean up because they touched a dead raccoon? And she's like, well, we didn't touch it. And I go, well, what'd you do? Oh, we just picked it up with sticks and moved it around. Like, Jesus Christ. You know? I go, well, is it like this? And she's like, I think it got stuck in the mud and just died there. And I'm like, okay. You know, yeah, they'll take saws and hammers down there and build shit. I mean, they're 10. Is he 11 now? Or is he 10? 10, 9, and 9, something like that.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And they're really tight.
Yeah.
These 2 boys and my little girl.
That's awesome.
And we call them the Wild Bunch.
Yeah.
You know, they just go out and do wild shit. And like they're gone. Like, we'll call out to the farm. It's like, hey, what are the kids doing? I don't know. They're out in the woods somewhere.
Just lure the flies out there, yeah.
You know, a ton of acreage. And there's all kinds of different. And Grandpa's been out there for decades, you know. He's got trails and shit everywhere. And it's just like, if every kid, I feel bad that not every kid gets to have this part of their life.
I know.
I mean, there's what she's learning, what she's seeing, what she's receiving, you know, all the love that she gets out there. I mean, it's something that she's going to have the rest of her life. You know, the memories that she's making and the lessons she's learning and the ability to just be on your own and do what you want to do. Yeah.
And then have grandparents close and, you know, just like, that's the best, man.
You know, we used daycare for a very little bit when Mary was a newborn. But it was like a couple days a week, and then she was at the farm the rest of the time. Yeah. You know, and the daycare was phenomenal. But, I mean, just having that, which most people don't. Right. You know, I mean, you're in a big city and you moved away from home and you've got to pay for daycare. Right. Because you're both working or whatever. Right. And then you're just like turning your kid over for the majority of the day. Right. And they're seeing daycare more than they're seeing you. Yeah. It's tough.
Yeah, we had to do it. You know, and I think it was a different time of, you know, 2-income homes. Yeah. It's just a different time, but I mean, there's nothing better than that. I love hearing that. You know, for me, growing up in Lansing, you know, we didn't have the water. To me, the North was just the promised land. I want to be close to these, you know, full connection in nature. But the way that all the kids feel connected to water, you know, living on the bay or living close to proximity, they're connected into this way that it gives me goosebumps thinking about it. But it's like they want to be in the water as soon as they can. Yeah. You know, or they want to cold dip. They want to just be in the water all the time. They want to be on the mountain skiing. Like they want to be in it. And it's just this spiritual connection to it, which I absolutely love. All of them. As different as they are, they will be together in water, swimming in the river, swimming in the bay. And I'm just so happy. I love it. I love it so much. It's so good.
Yeah, and they'll always come back.
Always come back.
You know, I didn't think I would ever live here. When I graduated high school, you know, went to college for a hot second, found out that wasn't for me, and then went in the military, but then came back, and, you know, I'm like, honestly, you know, it's so cliche now, but we're always talking about how this is where people come to vacation. They come here to vacation for a reason. I mean, we have literally everything. Like, Michigan is like an ocean, and for, you know, a good solid 4 months, it is 4 or 5 months, it's amazing to be on and in. Yeah. And then you've got ski season, and we were blessed with a shitload of snow this year, which was great for all the businesses. Amazing. You know, people complain about the snow, but like we need commerce here. Snow brings commerce here. You know, people, it does. Like you said about skiing. I mean, there's a large community of people that ski, cross country ski, and just enjoy being out in nature in the wintertime, and so that was huge. And spring here's are great. The color tours are amazing. I mean, you know,
it's the connective tissue of the North, because I mean, I feel like you have the disparity gaps, you know, especially in some of the smaller northern Michigan towns, the have and the have-nots. It's like there's not a lot of middle class. You know, and that's changing. I mean, but I feel like in the North, it's like, it's the cabin for someone that has 300, you know, and then you have the working class. But I feel like the thing that does connect is this passion for the outdoors. Like everybody is taking part in this thing together. And that's special. You know, I still feel like I'm a tourist, even though I've been here for almost 20 years in the North. This was always just the place I wanted to be and raise a family. So it's like, it's pretty special. I don't take it for granted.
Yeah.
I still feel like oh, I'm driving to Manistee. I get to do, you know, like this is the best. It's the coolest.
Yeah. And the pace.
The pace is so, I know.
It's so chill.
Dude, I was a little frustrated. I remember the first week we moved here, it was in Antrim County, and I remember, you know, in a city, you're used to everything being open all the time. But, like, getting used to hardware stores being closed on Sundays,
yeah,
it's like people respect the Sabbath, and then you start to appreciate how rad it is. But that pace is something else,
yeah.
Man. It's really good.
I mean, I can't. We had a funeral a couple weeks ago, and we had to go to Lansing, and as soon as you hit traffic in the cities, like going through the S curve in Grand Rapids, it's
man.
like, dude, fuck you. I don't do it enough. I don't travel that way enough. I mean, going to Traverse City specifically for something is one thing, and it's barely once a quarter.
Right.
I mean, we don't leave the county.
Right.
And it's on purpose because everything that we need or want or desire is here.
Yeah.
And, you know, when I was younger, let's go. Let's go to Chicago. Let's go to Detroit. Let's go do all these things. And the more and more I'm away from it, as soon as it starts to come in around me, I'm like, oh, fuck.
I know.
I'm all tense. I can't drive.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, this is so gross. I don't know how people do this.
I know.
These huge buildings. And it's like, you guys don't know what it's like an hour and a half north.
I know.
Just come up here.
I know. And then that's the thing. It's like I'm out of practice. If I'm in, you know, I love the casual drive to Thompsonville. It's therapeutic. You know what I mean? It's but yeah, it's like being in New York City where it's like it's a rat race of they've adjusted to this pace in a way that just the amount of stress that they've just figured out how to cope with on a daily basis is bonkers. And you realize that going back, like, oh wow, that's how people daily. I remember first time I was in New York, we rode the subway to go, I think, check out the Statue of Liberty. And I remember my first time there, and I remember seeing this mom and 3 kids, young kids, taking a stroller down like 4 sets of subway stairs. And this is probably like 7:30 in the morning, 7 in the morning. And I'm like, that's her daily routine just to survive and get kids off to school and work. I mean, that's super grateful. I know people that love that lifestyle. They figured out how to navigate that and hack it and make it work. But riding in a taxi cab, wasn't a very customer reciprocal. You know what I mean? Like, but that's.
I mean, just going grocery shopping.
Go. Yeah.
You know, wild.
Yeah.
I really do appreciate the people that like have a cabin.
Oh yeah,
and they live in the city. I mean, my wife's family all lives in Owasso.
Oh yeah.
You know, and there's nothing there.
Yeah,
it's like farm country, and that's it. There's no water. You know, and a lot of them do have like a cabin they go to, and it's like I think of the stress in that. Number one, I have a cabin someplace. What's going on with it? Like,
right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Oh, and I got to go winterize it, or I got to go turn the water on now, or you know. And then it's like, all right, this weekend we're getting in the vehicle and we're driving 3-4 hours to go to the cabin to hang out for the weekend. How stressful is that?
Yeah.
It's like going camping for a weekend.
Right.
You got to pack all the shit up, then you go and you got to set it all up, and then you're there for 16 hours, and then you got to pack it all up again. And But I understand why they do it. Yeah. Because they don't have that there. You know,
it's a lifeline.
Yeah. And the memory. So like Betsy always talk about, well, my grandma's cabin. You know, we go to grandma's cabin, or like grandma had, I think, a place in Florida. But like it's the same thing. Like all these kids are like growing up, going, oh, we're going to the cabin this weekend. It's by a lake. Yep. You know. Yeah. And again, to go back to the beginning, the kids don't understand the stress that the parents are going through to make all this shit happen. Right. They're living their best lives through us.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You know, I say that all the time about my daughter. Like, she had no idea. What she knows is this is the greatest thing right now. Yeah. You know, if you could put 9 years old or 10 years old in a capsule. Yeah. You know. Yeah. I mean, I'll watch her, dude. It almost makes me cry when I watch her sometimes. I'm in the kitchen the other day doing the dishes, and she just comes home from school, gets off the bus, comes in the house. And she's like, I'm going to go. I purposely brought her bike out, set her outside. It was a beautiful day the other day. She come in, she drops her backpack, takes off her jacket, and she's like, I'm going outside. She runs outside, she gets on her bike, and she's just doing loops around the house, around the garden, down to the park and back, and then she gets off it, gets on this little scooter thing, you know, little skateboard scooter, and she's zipping up and down the driveway on that, and then she grabs a basketball, and she's just sweating, and she's like, you know, and I'm like, oh my God. Like, I don't remember that.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And she is just... That's one thing about school that I can't stand is it's just like these kids just are like all day long.
Oh, yeah.
Routine, follow the rules, stand in line, go outside, come in, do this, do that. And then they come home and you wonder why, you know, they have all this extra energy, or maybe they're not really regulating their emotions because they've been told all day to chill out. And then, you know, I mean, there's a lot of psychology that goes on once a kid comes home, and that's why I'm always like, whatever you want to do, let's just get outside and get after it. I hate shitty weather because you can see it on a kid. The older I get as a parent, and I'm looking at my daughter, and I'm like, you know what she really needs to do is just go outside and get wild, because a 15-minute recess at school, and in third grade she's getting like maybe 2. It all depends on what's going on. And it's like, no. These kids need to run wild. They need to get this shit out of them. And it's tough. You can see it on her. Like, already school. And it's still kind of a fun age at school where they're not really having to do calculus. You know what I mean? Right. So it's tough.
Just being bound to this cubicle of a desk.
I hate it.
And there's be interesting to talk when you talk to your friend about that as a teacher, like there's a lot of talk about how that's playing out, and it's tough. We gotta figure that out for these kids, you know. But more pro recess.
I'm
sure.
I'm pro recess and pro no homework.
Yeah.
And it used to be like, you got to give these kids more work than these. Yeah. You know, but the seeing it basically the second time around, it's like, you know, like I would never ask my employees to go work from at home when they're done with their shift. Right. You know what
exactly.
I mean? Exactly. So why do you have to go work at home when you're done with school?
I know.
And they don't want to do that. I don't give a shit what age you are.
Right.
Like telling my 9-year-old when she comes home from school, like, okay, let's bang out this homework, or wait till after dinner. And it's like, no, we're trying to chill. Right. We're trying to be a family. Right. You know,
we need that more than ever.
Yeah.
That idea of homework is such an old. It doesn't make any sense.
I think they've gotten rid of it here. But in third grade they're still getting homework, but I think as they age up a little bit, they've stopped doing the send in homework. And there's a couple of reasons for that too. It's not just because I'm frustrated that, you know, my kid has to do schoolwork at home after she's already had 8 hours at school. But, you know, some kids go home and they don't have the support that we offer. Right. You know, maybe their parents aren't around, or maybe they're dealing with other things, or maybe they are not interested in helping their kid with homework. And so it's not an advantage for a lot of kids. Right. You know. Right. To do that, but I don't know.
It's not a one size fits all. I understand the discipline, and there is, like you said, given the strategy, you know, the family dynamic, it could be a good thing to do together for sure. But especially when they're young, there's got to be kids, you know.
Betsy got a bunch of homeschool workbooks and stuff that she's been kind of doing with Mary, and they're very like hands-on shit. Yeah, you know. Yeah. And she's really excited about that. My 9-year-old, hey, we're going to do astronomy this week. Yeah, you know, so we're going outside. We're looking at the, you know, astrology or whatever, and the moon and all this shit. And then she's going to do weather. Like they have weather. And it's part of their science at school. That's cool. And Mary's always like, yeah, we just check and see what the weather is. Nice. So now we're doing like legit meteorology. Nice. And we make it fun. Yeah. You know? Yeah. Like, so if she wants to do that, then it's like, okay, well, just hurry up and get your homework done, and we'll do this quick. Yeah. You know. Yeah. But no, that's great. I feel like, you know, the thing that I always, you know, very family teachers, like very pro, you know, believe in the public school system, but, you know, I did not enjoy school that much, and I felt like a lot, there's always, you're never going to solve these problems for everybody, but like leaning into what people are good at and care about versus majority of the time is just, you know, spent on with a counselor telling you you're bad at math, you know? Like, I feel like there's got to be a way to, you know, and Dominique and I were talking about this the other day, like,
leaving high school and knowing how to balance a checkbook or understanding how finances, you know what I mean?
Yep.
Some of these home ec, great, but baking a cake versus learning how to, how taxes work, like there's, I don't know, I think it's all going to change, but
I'm 100% on board. Dude, this is day like 3,872 that I haven't been forced to find out the circumference of a cone. Okay?
Right.
Like it doesn't happen. And I was definitely in the same camp you're in. I played sports in high school, and I did just enough to ensure that I could continue to play.
Yeah.
Like school, was a social thing for me. Less education.
Yeah.
And, I can remember Mr. Casey, my guidance counselor, when I was like, I'm thinking about, maybe I want to go to Michigan State or Michigan or something like that. And he's like, no, dude. Like, literally, these are the schools you can go to. And he was honest with me. And I'm like, yeah, I get it. This is kind of the way it is. But so again, this sounded like an older dude. Shop class, electrical tech, drafting, auto.
Yeah.
We had an auto shop. And like, my brother basically got a work release so that he could, after auto was basically the only classes he took junior and senior year, and got a work release to go to work after that. I mean, that was great for him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I just read an article yesterday that Onekama schools are bringing back wood shop.
Oh, that's fantastic.
It's
That's fantastic.
Because there is school isn't for everybody. And there are some kids that would really excel at doing some of these things. Like, why don't we offer that to them? So
right.
Because first of all, it's not like it used to be when we were younger, when people were like, "What are you going to be, a fucking plumber?"
Right.
Why would you want to do that? Well, today you could make $400,000 a year as a plumber.
Oh yeah.
So maybe we should teach these kids how to do this.
Exactly.
Shit.
It wasn't just default to go.
Yeah.
Like that's now. There's that South Park episode of all the billionaires or the handyman because they know how to change light bulbs because men have just they've lost touch of all these skills.
It's true.
But it's like there's also this workforce demand for these high level labor. Mike Rowe has always done a great job of talking about this. Like they oversold this part of education for so long, and it's like I love that that's coming back, man.
He talks about that all the time where he says there's a certain, like, our generation going forward was very much like, you have to go to college or you're going to be an electrician or a plumber.
Right.
And you don't want to do those jobs. You want to get something where you can climb the ladder and make a bunch of money. They made those jobs sound like they were low-class jobs.
Right.
When in reality today, dude, you need an electrician, a plumber, an HVAC guy to come over to your house. You're on a 6-month waiting list.
Right.
And it is like, hey, it's $300 for me to show up.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. It's so, I know. It's so, and I love that that's more of the conversation now, I had a good friend in high school that he just didn't know what he wanted to do.
Yeah.
So his dad was a union pipe fitter, and so he's like, I'm just going to get a job at the union, figure everything out. Super hardworking kid. And he just figured out how to work hard. He had a boat before, by the time he was but like then he changed careers, did some other things, and then figured out what he liked. But just do something. You know what I mean? Do something. And the idea that you're going to be stagnant because you don't know the next 30 years of your life, the days of going to work for GM and being somewhere for 40, 30 plus years, those times, it's gone.
They're gone.
And there's this new era of like people are changing careers in their 60s and finding a new love and a new way to navigate that. And I think that's a great thing. It's a really great thing.
Oh, I do too. I mean, if you're not happy, I mean, keep the job you have, continue to do it, and then look for the other thing.
Right.
Right. But I get it. I mean, owning a business, we tried. Our biggest tool was the fact that we really financially invested in our staff. We were paying over $20 an hour, and for like basically, I mean, not to diminish it, but you're a clerk,
right?
Bonuses, paid vacation,
I mean,
unheard of, dude. But it was like, all right, you got to offer this stuff because if you don't, they're going to go someplace that does,
right?
And if you want good talent, you have to pay for good talent.
Yes.
I say this shit all the time. I'm in committees around here, and they like want to bring somebody in to do a particular job, and I'm like, well, you got to be around the 80 to 100K mark for this position, and benefits. And they're like, I mean, we were thinking like 40 grand. And I'm like, you're nuts.
Yeah.
I mean, you're asking somebody to come in and do this particular job. They're not going to move here for 40 grand.
Right.
Nobody's doing that.
Right.
Or you're going to get somebody that you don't want.
Right.
Eventually, you don't want.
Right.
And that shit blows my mind.
I know.
When people are still thinking, because we're Northern Michigan, small community, we don't need to offer. And I'm talking for jobs that are going to take an enormous amount of individuals' time and effort to do. And I don't want to say it on camera because people get pissed, but it's in those moments where I'm having these conversations like, listen, nobody's going to do that job.
Right.
You know, nobody.
Right.
And if you don't see, I have talked to Richard and Sarah about stuff like this, and they're very much like, I mean, we're constantly like, all right, what can we do to improve the landscape of the employment here? Because number one, it's super hard to keep good talent, and it's very hard to entice talent to come. I don't give a shit what you're doing. Right.
And they've understood that from day one, and that, you know, Richard's background in community building, planning, like he understood like a team is very much part of the community. So a healthy community creates a healthy team, healthy employee, stability, and it's great. One of our designers, marketing, Mackenzie, amazing. Love working with her. She's been on board since 2022, and she's doing a 4-month trip in this like adventure mobile bus that her and her husband just rebuilt, and they're going out west. And she's going to work remotely. And it's like I'm so proud that we can acquire talent like that, and then figure out a way to keep them. You have to do it. You have to have I mean, people paying well. It's a great marketing strategy too when you think about. What do you want to be known for? The company, if you have a Schultz from Starbucks talked about, I think he was the first adopter of like employee share, profit sharing. And it was unheard of, CPA is like this worst, dumbest idea ever. It's not going to work. We're going to go bankrupt. And the buy-in, the people that were buying into it, they want it to succeed. You're not spending hundreds of thousands of dollars in retraining. I mean, there's just so much value in taking care of people, But it is tough, and I understand there's this cost of living. There's these other factors that that need to get worked out. But and there's just limited money, But it's valuable.
Also, to your point, Mackenzie gets to go and do this really awesome thing. She's never going to forget the fact that you guys were like, we can make this work. And I think what happens is, as business owners or leaders in business, they tend to get in their own way and not see the big picture and say shit like, no, you're not doing that. Right. We need you here. If you're not going to do that, then I'm going to find somebody to replace you. Right. And they forget about the value that they're getting from that employee anyways.
Exactly.
Like it's their own ego that holds them back from that, which happens more than it should, for sure. Little things like, I think I can tell this story, but my I'll just say a friend. My friend asked their employer. This is a few years ago, and the employees are older people. They're in their mid to late 60s, and very stuck in like this is, you come to work at this time, you take your lunch at this time, and you're done at this time. And my friend was like, I really want to do this spin class with my girlfriend. It starts, so they were done work at 5 every day, right? And it starts at 4:30. If I skip my lunch and just work through my lunch here, can I go? No, we leave at 5.
Man.
And that was a moment, and it sounds so little and trivial, but it's like, well, wait a minute. Like, I'm giving you the same amount.
Right.
I'm just asking to leave a half hour early.
Right.
To go do this thing that's going to, it's healthy for me. It's keeping me active. It's going to keep my mind right when I go back, shit like that. And I'm like, and this was coming up on when I was creating Manistee Beverage. And I'm like, that's one of the things that whatever I can do. First of all, it's my company. So I'm always going to be the one that's working the most and doing the most for it. So, and I have to remember, and I think everybody who is going to own a business has to realize nobody loves or wants to work harder for that business than you do.
Right.
Your employees don't.
Right.
I mean, you can have an amazing package and be the most super great human being in the world, but from the team member side, the human side of that team member, they are too looking to better themselves, their family, So at some point, there's a lot of give and take. You got to just treat it like it sounds so cliche, but if you treat the employees like family, not like you're like some kind of overlord because you hold their wages.
Right.
Those days are over.
Right. They are. They're so over. And I get it was part of just how it was, it was part of structure, and there's jobs that need to have this structure to it. But and I think some people just also, I've seen it where they've been burnt, but I mean, not everybody but there are people that will abuse it. So they're reacting to that and they're creating these rules around it. But it is so important, and it's important to meet people where they are. And I get it, at a certain time you have to have rules that apply to everybody. So it's fair. But, I'm still grateful that we're at a size where we can create that, like we can still, and Sarah and Richard, Huddy and David have been amazing about allowing us to feel like a family within this amazing organization. I mean, that's it. It's rare, and I appreciate how rare it is. And you get it, like it's that old way of the tyrant. It's not how this is gonna go down. So, but yeah, it's tough, man. It's a tough. I remember Silicon. There's a lot of this conversation around like the rise of Silicon when tech companies really started to pop off. And you would hear in the news about, because they're working nonstop, they're sleeping in the office, but there was this idea that came up. I remember hearing unlimited vacation. Did you ever hear?
I heard that.
Yeah, and they were just trying to figure out ways to. We've created this. We're building this crazy ship at that time, but the idea that they're throwing out these things like unlimited vacation, it's a buzzword, it pops up in the news, but it's like, there's a shifting here of, and I love the idea of like people going and working for a company, checking in, checking out, leave their work, there's value in that, but it's just a different time. We have to meet people where they are, especially to keep talent. And I think different parts of the states is going to be different. Northern Michigan has an amazing wealth of talent, but it's also, we need to figure out how to keep them excited about being here. So,
what's next for Ironfish? What do you got here?
So I brought you our latest release. This is coming out in April. It's our Mad Angler Bourbon, our 6th year, and our Bottled and Bond 6th year. These were Ascot Award winners last year. This batch is phenomenal. So excited. I just wanted to get you a couple fresh ones.
It's fresh, dude.
Yeah, it's exciting.
Beautiful. I love the art.
Yeah,
the brand is just so beautiful. What's in it is delicious, but the bottling, the artwork. I mean, the way that comes off of there, almost like it's a hologram.
Yeah.
I mean, the fish, it's just so beautiful. And it pops off a shelf, for sure.
We're trying to make the packaging live up to what's inside, The collaboration with Michael Delve has been amazing, like his passion. I call him the Lorax of the river, just the storytelling. The whole label design concept was inspired off, I was looking at these 1950s like fishing licenses, and they had this library card style that was handwritten and stamped, and it was sloppy but beautiful at the same time, and you can kind of like there's a rhythm to how that comes together. But been super grateful to be part of that project, and we're excited about this release. It's our estate product, it's our premium line, and we've just creating something that people care about just still blows my mind. I still get goosebumps thinking about the dad coming in to buy a bottle of this, and he's like, I'm going to put this on the shelf. We're going to drink it when my son graduates next month. We get to be part of that. We're not selling carpet, or wire. We're selling this experience and this thing that people covet, and it's pretty great, man.
So what's it like developing a label like this and a bottle like this? I mean, is it like Mad Men?
It is a little bit like Mad Men. And Richard and I, 2021, we had a really great run of packaging awards with our trade industry, which was really fun and humbling and exciting. And, you have the glass, so there's a sourcing component. And, with product development, you have, like any design, there's parameters of what we can do with cost, timing, minimum order quantity based on the run. And then it's just from there, within these parameters, because if there's unlimited time, money, anybody could do it.
Right.
But we're dealing with these parameters. How do we make it the best possible? And then what's the North Star of what we want? And then let's figure out how to get it there. So we spent a lot of time with various extremes of how this is going to look. And the hardest part about branding to me is like, you're designing something for what you think it's going to be, not knowing necessarily if it's going to evolve into 30 plus SKUs. So how do you build a ecosystem and then a brand environment that allows for that growth? But, are we cutting ourselves short with this color palette, and how do we develop it or multiply it? That's the hardest part. But we had a great label supplier, we had a great glass supplier. It took a while to get with a company like Ironfish at that time. It was a lot of agency on my part to do what I wanted to do, but also we have 4 owners, that really, really care about this. So there's this personal side to making it perfect as it can be,
Sure.
So that's a lot of pressure, because it's like, this is, it's like, this will work, but can we just make it a little bit better to get, that 100%. You just want to wow people. Yeah. And you can apply the laws of marketing where it's like, we know the customer is going to love this. This checks all the boxes. But how does everybody, at that time, just, they get excited. They get goosebumps about it. Like, that's what you want to do. Yeah. So that was tough to get to that point of, this is what we're rolling with. And, it's rare to ever get 100% signed. Yeah. But I'm really proud about how it came together.
I don't know if it's the universe or what, but yesterday a clip came up and my scrolling. It was from some movie. I don't know the name of the movie, but it intrigued me right away. It had something to do with, I think it was like Ferrari maybe, but not like the Ferrari, the latest Ferrari movie. And the car company owner is talking to his creative. Mm-hmm. And the creative's got the board up, mm-hmm. got the car on it, it's all in pencil or whatever. And the owner's like, I don't like this. And it was the headlights that pop up. Mm. And he's saying it just looks ridiculous. It makes no sense to me. And the artist, the marketing guy is like, no, it's perfect. It's beautiful. It's very artistic. It's exactly what you want. And there was something about the front grille that he didn't like, and he's like, it looks like a bonnet coming off. And so the art director is like getting more and more pissed. You asked me to create something beautiful, and I did, and you wanted it to be trend setting, and I did. And he goes outside, and he's sitting on a stoop, he's smoking a cigarette, he's just fucking pissed. And the owner comes out, and he's like, listen, I just don't like the headlights and the grille. You got to redo it. And he's like, I have built this team, and it's taken forever to do this, and we put this all together for you, and it is a beautiful work of art. You must hate me. And he's like, Philippe, listen, I love you. I just don't like your fucking drawing. So I'm going to need you to redo it. And sometimes I'm like, man, your job must be so stressful. Because I started laughing and thinking about you before I come on. I'm like, because some of this stuff is just amazing looking. And it's like you put your heart and soul, because you've been doing this forever. So, and there's a certain amount of you that comes out in this. So like if somebody was to say, I really don't like the way that you got to change it. Like, how do you react to that? That's got to be tough.
It's tough. Well, it's tough because there's the creative and there's the marketing. And to me, like, I'm a designer at heart, but what made me get into marketing was the idea of having ammo without a gun. It's like you can create the most beautiful thing, but if it doesn't land or have the right audience, you've missed the mark. And so, like, those two things together work. But it's always, I think learn to be humble and let ego take a back seat as much as I can. But yeah, it's like a balloon being popped. Like you're about to present something, and I've figured out a rhythm for like presenting enough to pitch it where it's like, if we do want to change course, but here's how I can sell it the fastest. Yeah. And also there's times where it's like, I'm going to fight a little bit harder for this and then be okay if we don't get 100% sign off because I believe in it. And that's also good. And I think you have to do that.
Yeah.
And I could be wrong, but like, I believe in this. I'm going to fight for it. How do I communicate it? The hardest part is, and that's where I think I have empathy and appreciation for, like, this is an ownership team and a team that all really, really cares. So it's like, it's not a personal thing. It's like, we just have different perspectives on it, but at the root of it, like, this is from a special place, but that's also a double-edged sword, you know? But I think just learning how to position, fight, have clear messaging, you know, be very concise, and also just believe in things. If they're worth fighting for, you got to fight for them. It's not going to be easy for someone not to have the same feeling, but then it's like, well, I could either be bummed or figure out a different way to deliver it, or just look into this idea and see if I can work it out. And that's you can't get too attached to things. I think that's
I'd love to be a fly on the wall when the four of them are together.
Oh, yeah.
Because, I mean, we talked about, like, your relationship with your spouse.
Yeah.
Mine with Betsy and our working together. But then add two additional, you know, hearts and minds to this thing.
Right.
I mean, and I know that they clearly have very strong individual roles in the company.
Right.
But coming together,
yeah,
you know, it's got to be interesting.
It's tough. It can be tough, but it's also it is really beautiful, you know. And it's just, but then it's like you have, like anything, it's scale. These are now things that we're trying to navigate from this perspective, or we only had to think about it this way. And I think just the ability to be humble, the ability to, like, step back and, you know, I mean, I think that's where things do go when emotion gets too involved in some of these things. That's where you kind of lose sight. But yeah, it is fun. It is fun. I think Bell's coined the idea, you know, like, marketing, creative, and safety were the two biggest, like, pressure points of fist fights in the, you know, and it's so true. You know, like, there's those things that people really, really care about. They're nuanced. They're not like marketing same way. It's like, we can create algorithm and metrics and try to figure things out, but at the end of the day, it's like, how does somebody feel? How do we build brand equity that's not tied directly to the turn on something? You know, how do we, and I think we've done a good job of fostering that. So that's what we want to keep doing.
Yeah.
You know, we're not, how do you make something not a commodity?
Right. Yeah. I mean, you guys are definitely building something that's way more than what's in the bottle. What's in the bottle is phenomenal.
Right.
But yeah, the look, the feel, the touch, the smell, the atmosphere of Ironfish is way more.
Yeah, cool.
And there's a mystique there too. It's still the place out in the middle of the woods. Yeah. Even though it's so much bigger than it was when it first started. Yeah. You know, I love that part of it. Yeah. It's a pilgrimage.
It is a pilgrimage.
Even if somebody lives like us, 28 miles away.
Right.
Or 28 minutes away, I should say.
It's a special thing. We always talk about we're going to boycott if they ever try to pave that road, because that dirt road is such a part of our identity, you know. And
then boom, it's there. Yeah. It's so sick, and I love going for bike rides out county, and then coming in through the northeasterly end of it. You know,
the trailhead in the back. Yeah. It's so cool.
It's like, oh man, sometimes it's like coming into an 1850s circus. Yeah. You know, it's like, holy shit, look at all this stuff out here. Yeah. You know?
Exactly.
It's just, and every time I go out there, it's bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yeah. Yeah. You know? I know. It's so special. And we were talking about it earlier, like the idea that you can create something that has mystique. It's an accessible luxury to people that's not, like, people want to reach for something. Yeah. You know, they want to, you know, we want to listen, you know, we want to understand what people want, like, first and foremost, but then there's that idea that we're driving and bringing them up in their experience with Ironfish. And that's the coolest part to me, is like, you look at different players, and as craft beer as well, it's like you had this idea of being so core and so in your lane of affluence that it just didn't have this inviting feel. And then you had the other side, which was, it's so open that it doesn't have that mystique. And it's like, I feel like we've struck a really good balance of being in the middle of both of those, where it's like somebody could come in and not know anything about bourbon or maybe Jim Beam or not, like whatever it was, if no experience, and then come in and feel part of something and feel brought in, like that's the best. And that's hard to do at scale too, but I think we've done a good job with that. You know, nobody's, you know, we don't, craft beer, there was a lot, I remember that era of like, you know, there's certain things you're going to order on the menu.
Yeah.
And if you don't like, you know, like there's that whole thing. But I love that we're creating that accessible luxury for people. And it's special. And we have to protect it.
I mean, you turn non-spirit drinkers into spirit drinkers when you go out there. Now, hell yeah, you go out there for the pizza. And you get talked into a Marilla mule or what, you know, and then all of a sudden you have this like amazing appreciation for Iron Fish's gin. You know, and it's like, I didn't know I liked gin.
Right.
Now I need to buy a bottle, and that's legit. You know, with anything out there. I mean, your craft cocktails are out of this fucking world, and if you can, and we've tried to replicate those on camera too. I know, you know, Danny, we did a few. And you know, some of them hit, some of them didn't, but I mean, it's just, and then we created a lot of craft cocktail stuff based on what you guys were doing through COVID to kind of like, you know, and a lot of fun. But so again, you can't, you're hitting on everything. I think you really are hitting on everything out there.
Thanks, man.
I mean, you're not, I don't think you're losing anybody when somebody comes out there, you know, unless, God forbid, just a horrible experience has happened, or whatever. But I mean, it's one of those places where you're in the 1% club, I think, in terms of experience, what you're offering, atmosphere. I mean, the teepees. I mean, come on, dude.
The teepees. That means a lot. Talking about COVID, that's a hard time for everybody. We had the hand sanitizer law that let us produce, which was, you know, kept the doors open in a really tough time. We were super fortunate with the space. So I still have indoors, a bunch of your hand sanitizer. Do you? I bought, we had quite a bit of it. The indoor-outdoor scenario, a lot of people didn't have the space to do it, and that became kind of a fun thing for people from, so it turned into something more. Same with the RTD market. Like, I think COVID birthed this category, you know, that really came out. I mean, the Salt and Maple Old Fashioned ready to pour, phenomenal, blew up. But that was really a part of that. You know, everybody was getting the pickup pre-made. I mean, I think that was a great. So there's some pluses. We were super fortunate through all of it. But yeah, it's just nice to care about what you're doing. It's important. It's paramount.
Yeah, and working together.
Yeah,
and I've been a homer forever. I mean, I think really my love for Iron Fishes came out of meeting Sarah and Richard.
Yeah, I know.
It's hard. I mean, they're just so awesome people. It's like, how could you not support that?
I know.
You know?
I know. I remember seeing the numbers come in early, first when they came, and I remember, man, Steve, you know, just the amount of product, and then you're putting out content. Like, just, I was always a fan. Always a fan, you know. I
mean, that product right there was, you came into the store looking for whiskey or bourbon or whatever. It's like, that first thing you got to see is this display, this is who they are, this is where they're at, you got to go out there and see them, blah, blah, blah. I mean, the story sells it.
We've been very mindful of the indie approach to our, you know, our accounts. I think like any product, like you need, these chains aren't going to hand sell it. You know, the kid at Costco isn't going to pull it off and talk to you about bourbon. You know, like what you've been able to do. The DNA of that account in Michigan is so crucial. You know, it's definitely, there's some 80-20 there, but you were putting out a lot. You were selling a lot of product, and you were one of the biggest brand ambassadors. You know, in that day. And I know Sarah and Richard, it's like hard to people. You know, it's the people. It's great, but. Always appreciated your approach to caring and excitement around things. So it's good. Yeah,
I mean, we all live here, dude.
I know. You know? I know. Supporting each other, and there's still that left. You know, there's that era of the wine industry where it was like, we're building this pie. We're all looking out for each other. We're trying to grow this as a team, you know, and then you get to a certain size and it's like, well, let's all just kind of carve out our pie. Let's, you know, everything kind of gets to that at some point. I still think there's that up here You know, like we're not giving away all our trade secrets, but there's still this like community which we need to do. You know,
Yeah, 100%.
we need to do. So love it.
You know what we should do when that Rad documentary comes out? We should get together and go watch it. We'll
Absolutely.
that shit. That'd be
Absolutely.
so much fun. I'm down for it. I don't care where you want to watch it. I'll go to it.
I'm so down. Let's do it.
I'll talk to the Vogue and see if they can get it here.
Oh, that'd be amazing.
That would be sick if they had it here. It'd be almost perfect. That's another thing too. Going to the movies. We're gonna wrap this up, but like, I was a going to the movies kid when I was young.
Oh yeah.
And do you remember? That was a TV show. I don't know if it was kids going to the. There was a show where kids went to the movies and like reviewed movies.
Oh, nice. I'm trying to remember.
It's so small, but anyways, it was the reason why I went. In the Vogue Theater when I was growing up, it had the main level, and then they had two theaters upstairs.
Mm-hmm.
All right, they were like, the B and C movies would play up there after the A's were done, and they had balconies in the main theater. And I remember my mom took me to see Superman 2. It was had in the balcony, and that's when I was
amazing.
like, this is where, and I saw, dude, first of all, I loved Indiana Jones, so I begged for a fedora, and I got one.
Nice.
Right? And then when Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles came out, the OG original one, that theater was, you could stand in the aisle. That's how many kids were in there.
Wow.
I mean, you don't see that shit today.
Yeah.
Often. And I can remember wearing my fedora to that, getting popcorn, and I'm a sit right up in the front kind of kid.
Yeah.
So, and I still do that. My kids, they hate it. But I go right up to the front and sit like this and watch a movie. But, I mean, I don't know where I'm going with that. But yeah, so like the movie experience to me in that old theater was goated. And it's still great today. Like my son is always like, I got to go to IMAX. And I'm like, well, if we're going to watch this, we're going to watch it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't need to travel for extra bass.
Right. You know? Exactly. Extra comfort seats. Yeah. I know.
Yeah, this one does. And it's so inexpensive.
Yeah.
And I'm the kind of guy that's like, you guys should raise your prices. You can do more with a little bit more money. Nobody's going to argue over a couple of bucks. I mean, I still think it's like $6-7 to watch a movie.
That's amazing.
That's so cheap. You go to Ludington, you can spend $50.
Oh, yeah. That's...
with popcorn and shit. But...
That's amazing.
I don't know.
The American movie theater.
Yeah.
The drive-in. Thinking about that, too. There's that era of, popping in the car, loading up. But, yeah, man, I'm so down to watch Rad with you. I'm so excited. And I love that, they always say nostalgia wins, especially when it hits that generational cycle of us being able to, like, it's for us, of course, but like whether or not the kids are ever inspired to start BMXing again, it's just a special thing, man.
Yeah, they all want to do Red Bull shit.
Yeah, right.
They don't wanna,
the high diving.
Let's see if we could jump out of a helicopter on our bike. Kind of thing. But
yeah.
Or consume it, one or the other.
Exactly.
Sweet, dude.
Yeah, man. I really appreciate it.